Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me on this Tuesday, December 20th in the Locher Room. I'm Alan Locher. Today, indie singer songwriter Tom Goss is here to discuss his career as a prolific writer and performer and tell us what drove him to write the song, Have We Had Enough? This song, which he wrote back in 2017, still resonates today with all of the current violence happening in our LGBTQ plus safe spaces. Tom's music mixes tender ballads with folk pop. He has released 7 albums to date and played thousands of shows across the US, Canada, and Europe to his dedicated fan base. He has been compared to Brett Dennen and Matt Kearney, but with a distinct voice shaped by his identity as a gay man and his unusual history. A college wrestler turned Catholic seminarian turned award-winning musician, Tom weaves his story throughout a powerhouse performance that moves between touching love songs and high energy anthems. His songs have been heard on ABC, HBO, Disney Plus, and in several films, and have been viewed more than 18 million times. He has shared the stage with performers as diverse as Andy Grammer, Martha Wash, Taylor Dane, Adrian Gonzalez, Matt Albert, and Katie Curtis, and he enjoys a particularly strong following in the LGBTQ community. His latest album, Territories, tells the complex story of a changing marriage through songs named after the places that inspired them. It's a stunning evolution of substance and style for a proven performer who has embarked on a thrilling new journey. It's truly my pleasure to welcome Tom Goss to the Locher Room. Hey,
Thank you.
Tom.
Thank you so much. That was quite the introduction. I was like, ooh, it made me feel really good.
Well, that's your career. That's everything you've been busy doing.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true.
You're hard at work. Well, truly, I've seen you on social media. I've listened to your songs, but I came across "Have We Had Enough" shortly after the attack on our community at Club Q in Colorado
Yeah.
Springs on November 19th. And truly, I wanted to learn what prompted you to write this in 2017.
Yeah, well, I was in Fort Lauderdale and I had just finished a show at the Sunshine Cathedral, which is beautiful, so welcoming. It's just so full of love. And so I was like really kind of like on this high and really excited about it. And then I woke up and the Vegas shooting had
Oh,
happened.
good.
And so I woke up to that news and it just immediately was like, what is going on in this world? And this isn't the first time, and it certainly wasn't the last time. And I had previously, done a cover of Nominally Brennan's song called Bleecker Street after Pulse. I didn't really feel like I had the words, my own words, to articulate this in a way that was as good as hers. So I covered that at the time. And then when this happened, I don't know. I don't know why I write songs. It just felt like I needed to write something, and so I wrote this song, and I booked a studio in Fort Lauderdale, and I recorded it, and then I released it. And it's sad because I guess the answer is no. I guess the answer is no, we haven't had enough of this. Like, this is something that we're going to continue to endure and continue to accept as a part of our society, because it has become so normalized. And so the fact that, I mean, many times a year, the truth of the matter is it's many times a week, or many times, sometimes a day, that this video could be applied or posted. But yeah, these things continue to happen that completely gut us. And I've spent Christmas in Colorado Springs several times. I have family in Colorado Springs, and it's a really wonderful place to me, and it has a lot of really wonderful memories to me. And yeah, the truth is, I don't have words and I don't have answers, but what we are doing right now is definitely not working. And so maybe we need to consider,
It hasn't worked for a
yeah.
long time. I remember watching Columbine from my office
Hmm.
thinking that would have had, some impact. And then Sandy Hook and Vegas and Pulse and all of these things. And it's interesting. I recently joined a board of an organization called Gay Sons and Mothers, and we were talking about the Colorado Springs. And for
Sure.
me, I'm 56, came out probably like early 20s, and really um, a dance floor is one of my favorite
Mm,
places and
yeah.
has been for all of these decades since. And the other folks I was speaking to on that Zoom call were like, would it stop you from going? And no, it won't. Nobody's going to win.
Yeah.
They're not going to stop us from dancing, but we do. I think what we're doing, talking about it, we have to continue to talk about it. It is an epidemic of, you know, crazy proportions, the amount of
Yeah.
shootings.
I mean, I think the thing, just speaking about it from perspective an LGBT community, obviously there's a lot of other communities that are impacted by this as well. So I don't say this to minimize any of that, but you know, people have been trying to wipe us out of existence since the beginning of time in many ways, and you saying that makes me moves me deeply because I so fully believe in our community and the resilience and the strength of our community. And I guess I would say I believe in the resilience and the strength of humanity. And so I know this is good. I know if we continue on this path, it will continue to happen. But that doesn't mean that I don't also believe that we can overcome this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I wanted to read, a verse of your song.
Sure.
Have we had enough? Will we ever turn and walk away? Will we ever drop the guns and say that we are one? Have we had enough? Have we learned nothing from our past? From the lives we've lost, don't let them be for naught. What was the reaction when you first put the song out?
Um, Gosh, it was so long ago. It's hard to remember, But I think people are moved by it, and I think people see truth in it. And for me, music is about connecting with other people and finding a common language. In some ways, the music is the common language, and the truth of the matter is as I don't feel like I'm particularly poetic or particularly insightful or articulate, but my music is. And I'm really and
Well,
I don't
you are articulate, and you put it
yeah.
into words, to beautiful music. And I feel like, everybody listening and anyone who watches this interview at anytime we see a shooting, we all should be sharing Tom's message, because we really have had enough.
I mean, I certainly have. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I completely agree. Um, Talk to me, take me back. You didn't set out to be a musician.
Oh no. I mean, yeah, I didn't really. I mean, I guess I had piano lessons when I was like a kid. I had like probably like two. Miss Adsit was my grade school piano teacher. For a couple years, but it was just never really was something for me. I grew up in a family of athletes, and I love sports, and still to this day, if I go outside and I see a bunch of kids playing soccer in the park, I am genuinely jealous. My heart wants to be there all the time. I mean, the older I get, the more my body deteriorates, unfortunately. But the truth of the matter is if all I want to do is be outside playing, and so I didn't really pick up the guitar until after I graduated from high school. I got it as a graduation present, actually, from my mom, and I was starting to get into music a little bit more in my own right. There was always music around the house, but it was like oldies, like the Beatles and the Monkees and the Mamas and the Papas and stuff that was like just like that old classic, really strong songwriting type of stuff. And I started really getting into Dave Matthews Band, and it was like following them around on tour in the summer, and just really loved the vibe, the positivity, and the power. I think for me, if I'm being really honest, I come from a very emotionally stunted family, and they're wonderful, and they are talented, and they are smart, but they are very afraid of their emotions, and are unable to articulate them. And I think that has a lot to do with the turmoil between my mother and my father and their divorce, and still these days that it's still horrible. So it's so stupid. It's like 30 plus years later. But for me, I think I started to listen to music, and there's something about music to me, and I think to the world, that really transcends your boundaries. So I had a lot of boundaries, and I think people really kind of consider me almost emotionally robotic. And the music that I was listening to was just cutting right through it, and it was like teaching me that there was an entirely new way of being, an entirely new way of understanding, and in that there was a lot of power, and power to do good, and power to heal, and power to bring people together. And I was writing a lot in college, and just performing, and just having fun with it. And then I went to Catholic seminary after college, and that didn't work out. And
What prompted that choice?
same stuff as I'm saying, to be honest with you. It's like my desire to heal people, my desire to be reconciled with myself, and reconciled with others, and help others reconcile with themselves and others. My desire to work in ecumenism and interreligious dialogue, and all this stuff is kind of the same thing. Like I you know, it does not surprise me that a person with parents that hate each other, and is constantly in the middle of this divisiveness, decides like their lifelong mission is to figure out ways to
How to
unify
heal
people,
people?
and
Yeah.
help people communicate, and help people understand themselves and reconcile themselves. So I mean, it's pretty obvious when you break it down with a little perspective. But yeah, that's what I wanted to do. It was kind of the same thing. And people always say to me, they're like, "Oh, I wonder what you were like when you were a seminarian. You must have been so different." I'm kind of like, I don't think so. I think it's just a different platform. Like, I wanted to do these things, and I wanted to use that platform to do these things, and then that didn't work. And now I use music to do these things, and now I have a little bit more control over, how I communicate with people, or the language that I use to communicate with people, instead of finding a really rigid box of like Catholic
Right.
dogma
Yeah.
religiosity. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah,
So
you would have some problems expressing some of the things that you are currently expressing in your music.
I mean, I'm sure my community would have loved "Put That Ass in Christmas." I mean, come on, come on.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. But you did talk about being let down in the seminary. What was it? Something in
Let
particular,
down. I mean,
or just
I don't know if it's let down as much as it was just like they were just not good people. They were just really, really bad people, and it may come as a surprise to you, but there were predatory people there as well. So I mean, you know,
I like how you preface that, but yeah, no, it doesn't come as a surprise.
yeah, it was a bad place, and there's no really need to like go into it in detail. Besides, like,
Yeah.
thank God I was only there for a year and a half, and I am thankful. If I think about it, I was going to say I'm thankful every day, but I'm not. I don't think about it that much. But when I do think about it, I'm very thankful that it was as horrible as it was, because I am driven, and I am loyal, and I am committed, and I am passionate. And had it just been like a little bad, I would have stayed there for like a decade. And it was really horrible, and so horrible that I left in a year and a half, and I'm grateful for that.
It's so interesting because people, look at uh, religion or priesthood or seminary as a calling. You were looking for your calling by going
Mhm.
to seminary, but you now have found it in music.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I guess I haven't thought of it in those terms. Maybe, I also think that life is a choice. Every day is a choice, and I do think that I'm particularly skilled at some of the things that I do, and I lean into those skills and those gifts. But I also, I went to school to be a teacher, and I have a degree in education, and I could be teaching social studies at a high school in the Midwest right now, and I think I'd be really good at that as well. So I think that we we need to move forward in life, finding our strengths and seeing where we can make positive changes in the world, and just make that decision every day. And I know sometimes it sucks, but even when it sucks, you need to be like, this still feels good to me.
I love that. We can make positive change in our everyday interactions.
Yeah, I sometimes think about my mom who taught for like, I don't know, 30, 40 years. I don't know, like a long time.
A long
And I
time.
and I think about like how many kids did she have every semester? Like 150, 200. And then so over the course of the year, it was like 300, and then the extracurricular. It's like she was probably impacting like 500 kids a year, really, really strongly. And then you multiply that over the course of like 40 years and 50 years, and then the people you're passing in the hallway. And I think to myself, like, whoa, the amount of impact that just a teacher has in their local community, and that will last forever. There's going to be somebody who, when they're 80, is going to remember something that my mom taught them, and they will have also taught that to their kids. And it's like, again, I feel really strongly about humans, and I feel really strongly about our capacity to do good and our capacity to overcome. And when I think about my mom or what we all can do every single day in our local community, I'm just overwhelmed with gratitude just to be here and to be in this position, and am proud of people around me.
I love that. You talked about, I mean, coming from parents who fought all the time and considering them to be emotionally stunted, what helped you to, open up yourself and
Mm.
not sort of, you know,
Yeah, no,
be
I don't
follow
make.
that path to some degree, if you know
I
what I
mean, you're
mean.
just gonna make me cry, but
Oh no, don't.
I mean, no, it's beautiful. It's my husband. I left seminary and I met Mike like not even 2 weeks later, and
Oh
I
wow.
was so, I was coming from a place that was very rigid, emotionally rigid, and I would say like emotionally stunted. And then I was completely and utterly destroyed by that experience. And so I was very broken. And, I met Mike, and I, I don't know what to say besides, you know, our life has not been perfect, and our relationship has not been perfect. But even in the bad times, I cannot discount what he has meant to me and what he has done for me, and the ways in which he has loved me and supported me and
All right,
nurtured.
now you're making me cry because just hearing that and taking that in, but also, I feel the same way about mine, so I understand
Yeah.
that connection, and yeah, I definitely understand that. But I also, I'm older than you and probably met him when I was older than when you met Mike, and I just think sometimes, we're ready at a certain point. You were ready at that age when you left the seminary to meet him and take in what he brought to you, and the same I feel, in my, current marriage and all of that, but. Um, Yeah, it's interesting because you talk about your parents. I mean, my parents were together for almost 40 years, but I experienced a lot of fighting as well. But my parents were Holocaust survivors, so
Shit.
they had another they had other baggage on their
Yeah.
souls.
Oof.
But it's interesting because you know you talk about music too, and I love music. I told you I love to dance, but
Yeah.
it doesn't hit me emotionally the same way as it does for many others. And I've always, it's bothered me to some degree. Like it doesn't resonate the same way. And I don't know if that has to do with, something in my early childhood,
Huh.
but I think about it a lot because it's interesting because I love music. I listen to music all the time, but the way it resonates with other folks is just different than it does with me.
I mean, I don't think that any of this stuff, like, I think we spend a lot of time in our lives. Well, I'll speak for myself. I think I spent a lot of times in my life trying to identify the ways in which I am not normal, in the ways in which I am other than. And instead of just being like, you know what, music hits people differently, and that's okay. Something else hits you, and that's great. Like it's all great. It doesn't have to be a deficiency. It can just be what it
Oh,
is,
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Take me back to the first record you recorded. What do you remember about that?
Yeah. Well, I had just left seminary, and I was, I wrestled in college, which is very intense. And then I went to seminary, which is very intense. And then I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna get a shit job and I'm gonna make a record because this seems fun. And then I'll figure out what I'm gonna do with the rest of my life. That was kind of what I was gonna do. So I got a job at Starbucks, and I started making this record. It's called Naked Without. I actually recorded a couple of the tracks while I was still in seminary. I bought this thing called the M-Box Pro, which was how I started learning Pro Tools. And I was playing with this guy, Will Henderson is his name. This really super badass bass player. We would just play. And I just I had no idea what I was doing. I just recorded it. I don't know why. I don't know why I thought that I knew what I was doing, or why I had the balls to just be like, I'm gonna record a record. It's like I didn't know what I was doing, and so I did it. I mean, I've subsequent. It's funny. I was doing an interview a couple weeks ago, and I've subsequently pulled that record from the digital space. I mean, plenty of people have it still, but and he was like, "Why?" And I was like, I don't know. It doesn't represent me anymore. Like, it's just not. It's fine. The songs are fine. Like, it's interesting. I think it's kind of an interesting record, but from a technical perspective, it's a complete mess. And he was like, you should just remaster it or whatever, remix it, remaster it. And I was like, oh, that's a cool idea. That is a cool idea.
You need to do the T Swift, the Taylor
Yeah.
Swift.
But it will just be Tom's version again.
Yeah, Tom, exactly. That's incredible, though. What's the word? I mean, really, just I can't think of the word, but doing it yourself.
That's my career. I still most of the time don't know what I'm doing, but I do know a lot more than I knew then. And I do know that I always want to learn. So I do something, and then I'm like, and this is why I should have never made the first record, if I didn't want to be a musician for the rest of my life. Because the way, like I said, I'm very passionate and I'm very committed and I'm very loyal. And I was like, I made one record, and then I was like, oh, I can do better than that. And that's like every day of my life. I can do better than that. It's like, make one video. I can do better than that. It just, and now I have this plethora of skills that has no use in the real world.
Well, it is the real world. You're touching.
Yeah, I know, it's true.
You're touching people's lives. Michael Geneva says hi, Tom, and is watching because of you. And Sean says hi. Where do you go to learn? Like you learned how to do the first album by yourself, and it wasn't great. But is YouTube your go-to, or do you talk to other musicians, watch other musicians?
I'm a much more like, I'm a very collaborative kind of artist. This is my studio right now. I'm in my studio. I come here a lot and I just play. But I think I learned very early on, probably making my first EP, which was the second thing I made, called Rise. And I worked with, a team of people. And I was like, oh shit, they're really smart, and I don't say this to diminish myself. Like, I'm really good at things, but I'm not really good at everything. There's a couple people in the world. There's like the Jimmy Corgans of the world, or the Paul McCartney's of the world that can play every instrument, that can do everything, that just like their mind understands it all. Like, it's like, I'm okay. And this is about a journey. I'm okay with my mind being good at these things. And like my friend Liz, her artist name is DeRoche. I never want to do a project without her, because I will bring something that it's cool. I'll be like, this is cool, check it out. And she'll listen to it. She'll be like, I really like this, but what if we did this here? And I'll be like, what? Like, I would never in a million years think of that. And it has nothing to do. It's like, it's not a diss on me. It's just all of our minds work differently. And if you're in a creative space, like, it's not a competition. It's like, how does this creative mind add to this creative project? And so what I like to do is get some really great creative minds together and create something that's better than it would be if it was just me.
Well, collaboration breathes life into many things.
Yeah. I mean, and especially in music, like music doesn't really exist without collaboration.
But you've taken the first album off streaming. Do you have a favorite song off the first album?
Oh yeah, I have a couple. There's a secret track called Leave the Past Behind, or I think that's what it was called. I really like that one. There's a song called Concupiscence, which I just think is cool that I wrote a song about that. There's a bunch of fun tracks on that record. Like, I'm genuinely proud of that record. Oh, the secret track's called Naked Without, and the last track's called Leave the Past Behind, both of which I like. I appreciate.
We're all going to hold you to it. We're all going to wait for the remastered, remixed and remastered.
I probably want to re-sing it all too. I'm not even going to lie.
Does writing come easy to you now?
Writing's always come easy to me, to be honest with you. I write a lot, and I can write a lot, and I would love to write more. I think that's really where my skills are most prevalent, is in my ability to write and my ability to let go of, this is going to sound weird, but to let go of my like human shell and connect to whatever it is inside me that's deeper, and let that flow through me, and let that exist.
Do you have a process for writing?
No, not really. I mean, I think over the course of my career, I just test out a lot of different things, and I realize that my typical writing process is like playing the guitar and finding something that seems cool, and then words and lyrics and melody and guitar riffs kind of come at the same time. That's typically my process. But for Territories, I mostly wrote words first. Like, I really wanted to be really intentional with what I was saying, so I would write lyrics, and then I'd produce them, and I'd be like, okay, so I like Amsterdam. I wrote this song called Amsterdam, and I really wanted it to sound like rain. I was like, okay, let's find a keyboard that sounds like rain. I don't know what that means, but I did it. You find it, you like sit and you listen to sound. Yeah. And sometimes I'm writing the tracks, and sometimes I'm writing with other people, and it's just like, I've written so many different ways, and I frankly enjoy them all.
Do you test out your music on mic, or is there someone else?
It's just really funny story. The last track on my third album, called Turn It Around, is called You Know That I Love You. And I had written this record, and I didn't have a final track. Like, to me, there's like a final track vibe. Like, I don't know what that means, but there's a song you're like, oof, that's how you close out this album thought. And I was sitting in bed playing the guitar, watching Jerry Springer, and this riff came to me, and so I like put it on pause, and this song came out, and it was really pretty, and I'm like weeping. I'm like, oh, I love this song so much. It's all about like how much I love Mike, and I like voice memoed him, like, oh, it must not have been a voice memo. I don't know what it was then. It was probably like iPhone 3. I don't know what it was. But I was like, it probably was a voice memo. Yeah. And I was like, I played it for him, and I sent it to him at work. And he came home later, several hours later, and I was like, "Oh, hey, sweetie, how's it going?" But he's cranky because he's cranky a lot, and he's just coming home from work, and I'm like, bloop, 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 which is probably even more annoying, And I'm like, "Hey, so what'd you think of that song?" And he's like, "You really want to know?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "It's just not that good." And I was like, "What?" He was like, "All those other songs you wrote are much better." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "Oh my God." And I was like, and so I went to the to I went into the room and I grabbed my guitar and I was like, maybe it was the recording that was bad. Let me play it for you.
It was an iPhone 3.
And so I played the song, and I'm not looking at him because I'm already shamed. I'm like feeling like 6 inches tall, and I'm like playing the song. I finish the song and I look up, and Mike's like this. "Oh my God, that is the most beautiful song I have ever heard." And I was like, "What's your problem?" I had a really bad day at work. So I do sometimes, but the truth of the matter is like Mike is a very harsh critic, and he really values his role in the world as a critic, as most of the people on the internet do. But similarly to most of the people on the internet, Mike has no idea what he's talking about. So I've learned to take it all with a grain of salt. I'll be like working on a track. There was one time I was working on this track in the studio, which my studio used to be at the house, and he just walked in. I didn't even know he was in the room anymore because I get up much earlier than him. And he just goes, "I don't like that." And then he leaves the room. And I was like, "What?" So
Who asked you?
who asked you? And this is a work in progress. Like,
Who
it's like,
asked you?
yeah.
Where did you perform live for the first time?
My
Do you
very
remember?
first show was at the Potter's House, which is this really cool space in Washington, D.C. It's a coffee house and a church. I was at the time in seminary, and I was working across the street. This church also has a place called Christ House, which is like, if you're homeless and you have surgery, you have your foot amputated, you get your gallbladder taken out, or anything like this, where do you go to recover? It does, you get out of the hospital, what are you going to recover from your surgery on the streets?
Mhm.
So there's this wonderful place called Christ House that I was volunteering at. And they have a place, and I must have told somebody I played the guitar. I was like, I don't know, 22 years old, and had really long hair, looked like Jesus, I guess. And I was like, and they were like, "Oh, you should go across and play at the Potter's House." And so I didn't know anything, so I walked across the street, and I was like, "Hey, who books shows here?" Stupid. And they were like, "Oh, that's Mary. She'll be right out." And this like super hippie it's a super hippie place, not like new school hippie, like old school hippies. Like, this place was founded in 1960.
Wow.
And Mary comes out, and we just hit it off. I used to go to an ashram, a Catholic run by Franciscans ashram in my hometown, which her uncle founded. And so it was like this weird kind of thing. And she said, "Come to the open mic." And I came to the open mic, and I saw this guy. His name was Shaggy Scooby-Doo Braids, which I'll never forget his act because it was insane. And then I played a song, and then she booked me. And then my bass player, who I mentioned previously, was one of the clients at Christ House who had had his leg amputated. So it was like me, this 22-year-old, like long-haired hippie guy with an acoustic guitar, and then this like 55-year-old one-legged African-American bass virtuoso. And that was what it was for like a year and a half. Like, it didn't make any sense, but we had a good time. Mary's still one of my best friends. I love her so much.
I love that. And do you thrive performing on stage? Is that
Yeah, I love it. I feel very at home on stage, very at home. Yeah, it's wonderful.
how would you describe a Tom Goss show?
Oh, interesting. I would describe it as connective. That's really my main focus, is to go in there and to connect with people. And so I tell a lot of stories. I sing a lot, but really, it's like, I want it to feel like your I want it to feel like your uncle playing guitar at like your holiday event. You know what I mean? Like everybody just kind of sitting around. Can I tell you the weirdest? Can I tell you something really weird that's
Yes.
semi-inappropriate in this moment? Um,
Okay.
when I was a kid and I was like going through puberty, which was pretty late, and all of a sudden, like my penis was getting harder, and I was like, "What is this?" You know what I mean? Like I didn't know what was going on, and I remember that my dad had a joy of sex, like on the. It was actually my stepmom, probably, because that's not my dad's vibe at all. And I remember being like, "Oh, maybe I should read this because nobody's communicating with me." And there was this one picture in the joy of sex that was like the most 70s image that you ever seen, which was like a bunch of people naked, you know, and you could just imagine like it was like line drawing, but it was like shag, whatever. And then there's this guy playing guitar. Like, and I'm pretty sure the guy's chubby as well. Like, there's one chubby guy in the room and he's playing guitar. And when I was describing that to you, for some reason, that was the image that I couldn't get out of my head. So that's kind of
That is so
what I've
funny.
been going
I haven't
for.
heard that name of that book in years.
Yeah.
The Joy of Sex. I have not heard. God,
But there's something really wonderful about the image. Like everybody is naked. Like all of your walls are gone, and you're completely open to whatever experience is coming. And then there's one person that's providing that experience who's also, his walls are completely gone, and there's this symbiotic, energetic flow going. That's what I strive for my shows to be.
That's awesome. How do you think your music's changed from that very first album to Territories?
Ooh. I think that I've changed. I was talking to a friend at a Christmas party the other day who's a musician and who's been trying to like release stuff or let people know that he's a musician. And I said to him, like, and I was like, "Oh, so what's stopping you?" And he's like, "Oh, well, I keep going, you know, more or less every artist. Like I keep going back. It's not right. It's not right." And I was just like, "Look, it's right. It's always right. Like whenever you're writing a song, whenever you write that song, that's it. That's you tapping into that moment in time right there. Sure, you can go back and you could tweak that song for the rest of your life, but you're never going to be the same person that you were when you wrote that song. And so it's really important for artists, especially songwriters and musicians, to respect that person in that moment and then move beyond it. And then whenever you are the next person in that moment, then that's what it is. And that's what it is. And that's what it is going on and going so on and so forth. And so I think I've changed. Obviously, I'm a better musician. I'm a better songwriter. I'm a better singer. I'm a better arranger and producer. I'm more, you know, I worked on that record with Ian Carmichael, who's a brilliant producer and a brilliant mind. And yeah, it's just different people, you know. It's two different people both doing their absolute best at the time.
Great way to describe that.
Yeah.
Oh, totally. I blanked on where I was going. Totally lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, who are you currently listening to?
Oh, let me check. I'm so bad at that question. I just opened up this girl, Kat Janice. I have no idea who she is, but I was digging this song that I was listening to. I was in that same exact situation where I was like, what am I listening to? I needed something new. I spent a lot of time listening to Muna, and this past year, let me see my top songs. Oh, Emily King. Emily King's been my heart for the past year. Haim, Jordan Reiki.
Love Haim.
Yeah. But yeah, Emily King, I've been really obsessed with Emily King for about a year and a half. So really like female voices have really been voices that I've been really into, which is a little different. The past couple of years have been a little different. I've never been really good at Orla Gartland. Oof, God, she's so good. But yeah, I've been listening
I have to
to
look her up. I don't know her.
yeah, it's been interesting because I think that my working with Liz and also my production of territories, when I think about men and I think of someone like Dave Matthews Band, which is what kind of got me into music, and this idea that there's so much sound, right? It's just like coming at you like a wall. Like obviously, I think Phil Spector kind of created that wall of sound, and then everybody's trying to duplicate it. And I think that's a very masculine approach to music production. And when I listen to female artists and female producers, there's a really there's a it's much smarter, to be honest with you. It's like really smart and really specific. And instead of creating this wall of sound, they're allowing the story to be front and center. And then every now and then they're like bloop, 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 but it's really meticulous. And so I've been really into that, really appreciating that perspective. No
Mhm.
no diss on the patriarchy, but I'm I'm really into how the women that I'm listening to produce their music.
Yeah, I love that. No diss on the patriarchy. Talk about being an indie singer-songwriter. Um, do you want to keep it that way? Do you?
I mean, I don't really have any options. I had this offshoot of Universal send me an email 1 week ago. 1 week ago, hey, we're really into what you're doing. We want to release a song with you, et cetera, et cetera. I've always been indie. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. This is cool. So I wrote them back. I'm like, cool, I'd love to chat. And then yesterday they wrote me back saying, we're no longer interested. We don't think it's like you wrote me. Like,
Right.
what is going on? And it's like, it's of course I'd like to be doing bigger things and be on a label that provided me with different opportunities, especially in terms of songwriting. I'd love to be writing for other artists. I'd love to have representation that put me in rooms. Every time I get into a room, I have a great experience, but I don't really get into that many rooms because I don't really have those opportunities. And so yeah, I'd love to be doing more, but it's not coming and it's not there. And I'm also really grateful for what I have, So I have a career that I've built from the ground up. I have a fan base that frankly is underserved and underappreciated. And so I feel really grateful and I feel really honored to be able to write music for people whose stories need to be told and don't feel like their stories are being told. So yeah, of course, I'd love to be on a bigger label or have opportunities or be featured in other things, be in more television shows or whatever. But I'm not gonna sell my community out to do that. So this is where I am.
Talk about your community. Talk about building this from the ground up. Social
Yeah,
media, your connection with fans, all of that.
sure. Well, I mean, when I put out my first record, which was 2006, the idea of being a queer songwriter was toxic. That's just what it is. I used to have clubs tell me that they wouldn't book fags, and that's just what it is. And that was horrible. But it was also like, okay, well, what am I going to do? I already told you that my husband is the reason that I am who I am, and he healed me, and he's my support. What am I going to do? Be like, throw him out for the chance to hang out with people that don't like me anyways, And so I just really focused on the people that were liking me and the people that were showing up at the shows. And that was a lot of times Bears. Even before Bears came out, my first record came out in 2006 and Bears came out in 2013. So there were 7 years where I was just out there on the road, just like playing in coffee houses and in living rooms and theaters and clubs, like 120 shows a year, just like nonstop hustle. And Bears were showing up and I loved them. And they were warm and they were generous. And I was sleeping on couches. And I mean, it wasn't just Bears, but I nobody was telling our story. And it was scary to do that. And in some ways it was career ending to do that. But it also created a career that wouldn't have existed otherwise. And it also started telling people stories that weren't being told, you know. I remember very early on in 2008, my first music video that really did anything was called Till the End. And I just remember releasing it and people were going wild. Like, oh my God, I love this. People were so happy to be. It's just 13 couples and they're in bed on a Sunday morning. 8 of them are straight, 5 of them are queer. And I remember all the comments being like, I'm so happy to finally see myself represented. I'm so happy to finally have
And what's the name of it?
It's called Till the End.
Till the End.
And then I remember all my straight fans going like, oh, that's your gay video. Oh, that's your gay video. And I was like, what? There's more straight people in this video than there are gay people. And I remember learning that early on and being like, oh, there's nothing that I can do that people won't perceive as gay. And to a lot of people, that's a very bad thing. But fuck it. That's what I am. I go home at night to my husband who none of this is possible without. So I'm just gonna worry about me. I'm gonna worry about the people that love me. And I've continued to do that. And anytime there's a story that I feel like somebody doesn't want to tell, I'm like, okay, I'll do it. You know?
Do you perform at Bear Weeks?
Yeah, of course. Yes.
I sure hope so. Have you done Bear Week in Provincetown?
Yeah, I think I've done that 4 times maybe. I released the Bears music video like 4 days before Bear Week in Provincetown.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Bear Week, I only did it once there, but I love Provincetown's my heaven. My heaven.
Yeah, it's
my
fun.
heaven. Yeah. I love that. Is Mike in this arena of creativity and music?
No. He's very creative and he's very smart and he has a lot of insight that I do appreciate. But he's actually retired now. So he's mostly in the arena of sleeping and camping. That's kind of what he likes to do more than anything. But he worked in PR for a very long time. So he's always been really helpful in kind of like brainstorming and strategy and stuff like that.
That's where my career has been, PR.
Oh,
Absolutely.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he worked for Ogilvy on the PR side for a long time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Ogilvy and Mather. How did you and Mike meet?
Yahoo Personals.
Oh. I don't think I've ever heard of Yahoo Personals.
Well, it's been 17 years now. So yeah, so I think they were
Congratulations.
Thank you. I think they were bought by Match.com. So Yahoo used to have a personals page, and yeah, that's how we met. And it's funny because I met him. He doesn't like me telling a story, so sorry, Mike, but he won't know.
Nobody's listening.
I met him the day that I left seminary. I essentially packed my bags, and I didn't have anywhere to go, so I was kind of like still stuck in this place that had kind of become my prison because I probably quit at like 4 p.m. It's like, how do you find a place to live? Everybody I know, I moved, almost 1,000 miles away from anybody that I knew, and I was in this big house. What am I supposed to do? It's like a castle. It's like this dungeon castle, and I was like, no fucking way am I staying here tonight. So I like created a Yahoo Personals profile, like put out an ad on Craigslist. This is like, what was it, 2005, and yeah, I met him and I was chatting with him,
and the rest is history.
No, and it was he was very, very sweet. And then we got to the point. Remember, you had to exchange pictures. Like the pictures, it wasn't like apps. So he sent me the worst picture that's ever been taken of him in his life. And I was like, I'm not feeling this. I am not feeling this. And what I didn't know was that was the first night that he had been in a long-term relationship. And then him and his ex, after they broke up, had like lived together for like 6 months, one of those like tumultuous things. And he had moved out that day too. So he was like not wanting to go home. He was like at the office. I was not wanting to be at my place. And so I didn't meet him. And I went and I stayed the night with somebody else, and I was a totally insane person. And thank Jerry. That guy's name was Jerry. He was very, very sweet. He like took me out to the all night diner at like 3:30 in the morning because I wouldn't go to bed, and I was just like crying and screaming and da-da-da. It was like horrible. And then the next day I managed to find a place to live, and I fucking moved. So about a week and a half later, I kept talking to Mike because I thought he was very nice, and we talked on the phone. I thought he was very sweet, and I was like, yeah, I would still like to meet him because I really like him. And then when I saw him in person, I was like, oh, you're really handsome. You just don't understand that you have to take a good pic.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
I love that. But 17 years is a long time.
It's a long time. Yeah.
What makes it work?
I have no idea. We have I can only say like we have a lot of fun together, and we communicate usually well, and the thing about 17 years is like I've been so many people, and he's been so many people, and we're never saying you can't be that, you can't want that, you can't desire that. It's just like we continue to grow and evolve together. And in the times when, one of us grows in a way that makes us grow apart from one another, we allow that, which in turn makes us grow closer together. Because I know that no matter which way I grow and change, he will be there to embrace that. And he knows that no matter which way he grows and change, I will be there to embrace that.
Well said.
Thanks.
What are you looking forward to with the holidays just knocking on our door?
Just doing nothing. I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying here in Los Angeles. I dropped Mike off at the airport yesterday. He's gone. Everybody's gone. I'm going to come into my studio every single day. I'm going to make things. I'm going to take edibles. I'm going to watch shows. I'm telling you, I'm not doing shit. I'm going to take bike rides. It's like I'm really want to use this time to just settle and figure out what's next.
How can folks support you and your music?
Well, you can go to my website and you can buy merchandise. You can go to my Patreon page. Patreon is a really great way if you dig what I'm doing and you want to make sure that I continue to create new stuff. Then Patreon is a really wonderful way to do that. It's patreon.com/Tom Goss Music. Obviously, all my social medias are Tom Goss Music. So that's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, any social media I'm probably on. I don't pay attention to many of them. So if I don't respond to you, it's not personal. But yeah, come to a show. Here's the thing. I really love the introduction, and all of that is true. And I've had so many wonderful, great successes over my career, but that does not mean that I make any money. The music business is horrible. Yeah. And the music business is constantly stealing everything that you create from you. So if you love an artist, I'm not even saying me. If it's me, great, love it. If it's not me, fine. Whoever you love, you need to put money in their pockets because I'm constantly getting notes about how my music has changed somebody's life or how much my music means to you. And I appreciate that. That means a lot to my heart. But when I'm trying to figure out how to buy lunch, it's difficult. So Absolutely. Even if it's like going to the Patreon page, you could support an artist for $5 a month, sometimes $3 a month, sometimes $1 a month on Patreon. And it's like, we all know that a cup of coffee costs $5 these days. So if you're saying that this artist means as much to you, then you don't want to support their Patreon, then you're telling that artist that you don't mean as much as a cup of coffee to them one time. So I'm saying, if you like what I do, if you like what any artists do, find a way to buy their merchandise, find a way to support their Patreon, find a way to do something besides just listening to everything that they do for free and watching everything that they do for free.
Well said. Come to New York. I'd love to see you live.
You in the city?
I live in New Jersey. I'm in the city. I'm actually in the city today doing this from work.
Okay, you're like in Jersey City or something?
No, about 40 minutes. We bought the house that my husband grew up in from his dad.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah, so we
Yeah.
live about 40 minutes west of the city.
Okay, well, I'll definitely be in New York. I'm there all the time. I love New York. It's one of my
Oh yeah,
favorite places.
meet for a drink. You've put out some great music
Thank you.
for the holidays.
Thank
Do
you.
you have a favorite holiday song?
Of mine or of somebody else's?
Somebody else?
Oof.
Well, both. Tell me your favorite that you've written.
Well, I just released a holiday EP called Big Fat Gay Ass Christmas, which I am really having fun with. It's got 4
Well, I
tracks.
love the gay Christmas song.
Gay Christmas, yes. There's a song on the new record called Ho Ho Homo that is in a way the sequel of that song. So if you like Gay Christmas, then you'll like Ho Ho Homo.
I love the name. You got me at the name. Make that a t-shirt. I'll buy that immediately.
That's actually a great idea. Okay, Ho Ho Homo t-shirt. I love that. I'm gonna send that to myself. I'm gonna forget.
I get the first free one.
Okay.
No, I'll buy it to support you.
Ho Ho Homo t-shirt. That's really funny. Okay. But yeah, I mean, probably stuff that's like a little non-traditional, like the Paul McCartney Christmas song. Which song is that called? How does that go? I'm blanking on it. What is this called?
Jerry just said yes, make that shirt, and James said I'll buy one too. So you've already got 3 purchases.
Yeah. Wonderful Christmas Time. That's what that song is called. Like it's
Okay.
like it's a pop song. Like I just like pop songs. Like I feel like Christmas songs are always trying too hard to be Christmas. You know what I mean? And I just want have a pop song and throw some fucking bells in it. Like that's what I want. I want
just throw some bells.
I want something that I can listen to all year round.
So when you're home alone this weekend and hopped up on some gummies, what programming will you have on television? Don't say Jerry Springer, please.
I don't know, but I'm really bad at watching television. I tried to watch Meghan and Harry. Yesterday I was like, I'm staying home. It's Mike's last day. I'm going to do nothing. I'm going to stay home. It was horrible. I hate it. I hate being non-productive. This is not my vibe. But I tried to watch like Harry and Meghan last night, and I was like, this is so boring. I hear that Glass Onion is really great, so maybe I'll try to watch that. If anybody has any suggestions, I'm all ears. So sports, I might watch that the World Cup final. I didn't get to watch it, so I really want to watch it.
It was a great game.
Yeah.
So let's end on wrestling. How did you become? You earned a scholarship to school, right? On wrestling.
Yeah. Well, so like I said, I was always an athlete, and I grew up in a gymnastics family. Actually, my parents met on the gymnastics team in college, and
I love that.
Yeah, and so my whole family's full of gymnasts. 3 of my brothers went to college on gymnastics scholarships. And the truth is, Alan, I was just really violent. Like my mom always be like, you're a bull in a china shop. You know what I mean? I'm strong. I'm boisterous. I'm aggressive. I wouldn't say that I'm mean, but if I play a game with you, I'm probably going to bowl you over. Like that's what it is. I played basketball for like 2 seasons. I got fouled out of every single game I ever played in. So, that's just who I am. And I was, I was a gymnast and I was 13 and I was angry. And so I was just getting into fights all the time. And I started wrestling and it just seemed like a better outlet. And
you turned it into something great, a scholarship.
Yeah, no, it was great and it was fun. And it's actually kind of a horrible sport. It's not that fun. But in terms of it's kind of a lot of ways like the music business. It's not fun. It's mostly horrible, but the personal accomplishments feel really good when you get up.
I
So
bet. I
yeah,
bet.
yeah.
I
So
bet.
I just kept wrestling,
And and a cute boy or two.
yeah, yeah.
Maybe one or two on the mat. Maybe one or two. Tom,
Well, yeah.
yeah. What were you gonna say?
No, people are always like, "Oh, that must be so hot," and I'm like, I mean, I guess it's hot if you like getting punched in the face, you know. But the first thing that I do when I wrestle somebody is I effectively punch them in the face. It's like, how are they going to react when I punch them in the face? And because there's ways to do all this stuff legally, and then you're like, okay, this is how it is, and it's like it's not sexy or fun at all. And Mike has like, oh, it's sexy. Show me something. And I'd be like, he'd be like, ow, 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 stop, stop. It's like it's not what
abuse.
it's like. This is one of the things where the fantasy is a lot better than the reality.
Yeah, understood. It is such a pleasure to meet you. Thank
Thank
you
you so much for having me.
You are so welcome. I hope we get to see each other in person. I'd love to see you perform live.
Yeah, I'll see you in New York next time I'm in New York.
Happy holidays to you, Tom. Thanks so much for joining.
You too. Have a good one.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it. Thank you to Tom Goss. Like I said, visit his website, tomgossmusic.com, to learn more about Tom and his music and support independent artists where you can. Please join me tomorrow to catch up with Brandon Beamer, Celeste Fiana, Mike Manning, and Eric Nelson, who will be here to preview season 7 of The Bay that is out right now on Popstar TV. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, you can do so down below. Turn on the notifications for a reminder of all upcoming shows. And as you know, you can stream The Locher Room on your favorite audio streaming platform by searching, guess what? The Locher Room. Have a great evening, everybody, and I'll see you tomorrow afternoon.